The screen door creaked as Jake Carter stepped into the quiet house, his duffel bag still slung over his shoulder after 2 tours overseas. The scent of lemon cleaner mixed with something burnt a far cry from the homecoming he'd imagined. No laughter, no running footsteps, just the drip of a faucet in the kitchen steady as a metronome. His daughter Lily stood on a step stool at the sink, her small hands submerged in soapy water. The way she flinched when he said her name sent a chill down his spine. Jake had survived roadside bombs and sandstorms, but nothing prepared him for the hollow look in his 8-year-old's eyes. "Where's Mom?" he asked, already dreading the answer. Lily's whisper was barely audible. "She's with him again." The stuffed elephant she'd had since kindergarten lay in the corner, its stitching torn. That's when Jake noticed the boot print on its side. Over the next week, the pieces fell into place. Neighbors whispered about the black Dodge Ram that idled outside past midnight. Mrs. O'Malley from next door hesitantly mentioned hearing a man's voice shouting threats, "Keep crying and I'll lock you in the basement," while Lily's mom, Sarah, stayed silent. Jake's hands shook as he scrolled through the Nest Cam footage, Sarah leaving at 11 p.m. in a cocktail dress. Lily eating cereal alone at the counter, a hulking figure named Derek, yanking the elephant from her arms and hurling it against the wall. The custody battle was brutal. Sarah's lawyer painted Jake as an absentee father, but the courtroom gasped when Jake's attorney played the footage of Derek snarling, "You're the reason your mom's miserable." The twist, Lily's teacher, Ms. Rivera, testified that the girl had started sleepwalking, a detail Jake hadn't even known. She'd wake up sobbing, asking if the dark room was real. Ms. Rivera said, her voice breaking. When the judge awarded Jake full custody, Lily clung to his sleeve and asked, "Does this mean I'm safe now?" A year later, the scars were fading. Lily's new obsession was painting bright, swirling colors that covered the walls of her bedroom. One evening, she showed Jake a canvas with 2 stick figures under a rainbow. "That's us at the beach next summer," she declared. He didn't have the heart to tell her they lived in landlocked Colorado. Instead, he booked flights to San Diego that night. But healing isn't linear. At Lily's 9th birthday party, Jake caught a glimpse of Sarah across the street, her face gaunt under a street lamp. For a split second, Lily froze mid-laugh, her eyes darting to the window. Then she blew out her candles with a force that sent sprinkles flying. "Make a wish, Dad," she chirped. He didn't ask what she'd wished for. Some doors are better left closed. The letter arrived in November, postmarked from a rehab center in Arizona. "I'm sober now," Sarah wrote. "Tell Lily I'm sorry I chose wrong." Jake tucked it away in his toolbox behind the wrench set. Someday, maybe, but not yet. That night he found Lily on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the stars. "Dad," she said suddenly, "what if people can't fix their broken parts?" He pulled her close. "Then you build something new from what's left." This isn't just a story about a soldier coming home. It's about the battles we don't see, the ones fought in quiet kitchens and courtrooms with custody papers and stuffed animals as weapons. And it's a reminder sometimes the bravest thing you can do is kneel down to eye level and say, "Tell me everything." Because monsters thrive in silence. But so does hope. So tell me, would you have the courage to open that door, to face what's been hiding in plain sight? The truth won't just set you free. It might just save someone else. The sterile scent of antiseptic clung to the air as Lily stepped into Ethan's hospital room, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. His small frame looked swallowed by the bed, an oxygen mask obscuring half his face, but his eyes, wide and alert, locked onto hers the moment she entered. "You came," he rasped, tugging weakly at the IV in his arm. Lily forced a smile, ignoring the way Richard Blackwood loomed in the corner like a storm cloud. "Of course I came, Ethanito," she whispered, using the nickname she'd given him during their secret Spanish lessons. She reached for his hand, but Richard cleared his throat. 5 minutes, he said, his Rolex glinting as he checked the time. The doctors said no excitement. As the door clicked shut, Ethan's fingers suddenly tightened around Lily's wrist. "I saw her," he breathed, pupils dilating. "In the pool, the girl with the red ribbon." A chill crawled up Lily's spine. There'd been no one else in the water when she jumped in to drag him out, just Ethan, limp and sinking like a stone. Before she could reply, a nurse bustled in with a syringe and the moment shattered. Outside, Rosa pulled Lily aside near the vending machines. "Mija, what's wrong?" she asked, thumbing away a streak of dirt on Lily's cheek, residue from the Blackwoods' manicured garden where she'd frantically performed CPR. Lily hesitated, then whispered, "He thinks someone pushed him." Rosa's face paled. "Don't say that to anyone, not here." The next morning, Lily arrived at the hospital with conchas from the bakery. Ethan loved only to find 2 police officers flanking Richard in the hallway. "No evidence of foul play," one cop was saying, but Richard's voice cut through like a blade. "My son doesn't hallucinate. Check the security footage again." When he spotted Lily, his glare could have melted steel. "You! Did Ethan mention anything to you? Anything at all?" Lily's pulse roared in her ears. She thought of the locket she'd found last month while dusting the library. A tiny tarnished thing with a photo of a smiling girl inside its broken chain, tucked behind a first edition Dickens. The same girl Ethan had drawn obsessively in his sketchpad, always with a red ribbon in her hair. That night, as Lily crept through the Blackwoods' moonlit garden to retrieve Ethan's forgotten wheelchair, a shadow moved near the pool. Not a ripple, a shape. Something pale flickered beneath the surface, then vanished. Lily's breath hitched. Maybe ghosts didn't haunt places. Maybe they haunted people. By the time Ethan was discharged, the mansion felt like a gilded cage. Richard installed cameras by the pool and hired a private nurse, but Lily noticed the way he'd pause at his late wife's portrait, fingers twitching like he wanted to tear it down. On Ethan's first night back, Lily smuggled in a Milagro charm from her grandmother and pressed it into his palm. "For protection," she said. Ethan held it to his chest and whispered, "She doesn't like the roses. That's why she's angry." The next day, every rose bush in the garden was found shredded petals strewn like bloodstains across the lawn, and curled in the dirt near the pool lay a waterlogged red ribbon tied in a perfect bow. The Blackwood estate loomed before them, its iron gates gleaming like teeth. Lily tightened her grip on her mother's arm as they approached the front door where Richard stood waiting, his expression unreadable. "Come inside," he said, turning without another word. The grand foyer felt colder than usual, the chandelier's crystals throwing fractured light across the marble. Vivian perched on the edge of a velvet settee, her manicured fingers clutching a checkbook. "For your heroism," she said stiffly, sliding it across the coffee table. The amount made Rosa gasp. Lily didn't touch it. "Is Ethan okay?" Richard's jaw twitched. "He's asking for you. The doctors say it's important to his recovery." The admission seemed to pain him. Vivian's lips pursed. "We'd like you to stay, temporarily, in the guest house." Rosa stiffened. "Why?" A shadow crossed Richard's face. "Because my son won't eat, won't sleep. He keeps screaming about the girl in the water." His gaze locked onto Lily. "And you're the only one he'll talk to." That night, Lily lay awake in the too-soft guest bed, listening to the wind howl through the rose garden. At 2 a.m., a sound jerked her upright, a child's laughter bubbling up from the direction of the pool. She crept outside, bare feet sinking into dew-soaked grass. Ethan stood at the water's edge in his pajamas, staring into the blackness. "She's here," he whispered as Lily grabbed his shoulders. The pool was empty. But when she looked down, the surface wasn't reflecting the moon. It showed a little girl in a vintage swimsuit, her hair tied with a red ribbon, waving up at them with a smile too wide for her face. The next morning, Lily found Rosa in the kitchen scrubbing a scorched pot with trembling hands. "Last night," Rosa whispered, "I saw her in the hallway mirror. Just for a second." She wouldn't meet Lily's eyes. "The Blackwood's first daughter. The one who drowned in this house 20 years ago." Lily's blood turned to ice. That's when she noticed the locket around her mother's neck, the same tarnished one she'd found in the library. "Where did you get that?" Rosa touched it like she'd forgotten it was there. "Vivian gave it to me this morning, said it was a gift." Upstairs, a door slammed. Ethan began to scream. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly as Lily followed the nurse to Ethan's room, her stomach twisting with every step. When she pushed open the door, she froze. Ethan sat upright in bed, his small hands clutching a faded photograph. "Look," he whispered, thrusting it toward her. The image showed a little girl in a vintage swimsuit, her hair tied with a red ribbon identical to the one Lily had seen in the pool's reflection. "She told me her name was Clara," Ethan said. "Dad says she's just a dream, but—" His voice dropped. "She says she's my sister." Lily's blood ran cold. Before she could respond, Richard's voice cut through from the doorway. "Ethan, we've talked about this." He strode in and snatched the photo away, tucking it into his suit pocket with practiced ease. "Your medication makes you imagine things." But Lily had seen it, the date scrawled on the photo's edge. Summer 2003. 20 years ago. That evening, as the Blackwoods chauffeur drove her back to the estate, Lily noticed a detour. They were passing the town cemetery. "Why are we?" The driver didn't answer. Instead, he slowed near a wrought iron gate where fresh flowers adorned a child-sized grave. The headstone read, "Clara Ann Blackwood, 1998-2003, beloved daughter." When Lily returned, she found Rosa in the staff quarters polishing silver with shaking hands. "Did you know?" Lily demanded, showing her the cemetery photo she'd snapped. Rosa's face drained of color. "I heard whispers when we first started working here. A drowning accident. They never speak of it." Upstairs, a crash echoed through the mansion. Lily raced to Ethan's empty bedroom just in time to see Richard dragging his screaming son from the pool deck. "She was talking to me," Ethan sobbed, pointing at the water. Richard's face was ashen. "There's no one there, son." But when Lily glanced at the pool, the surface rippled unnaturally, as if someone had just slipped beneath. The next morning, Vivian cornered Lily in the library. "You'll stop filling Ethan's head with nonsense." She hissed, her Chanel perfume cloying. "Clara's gone." But as she turned to leave, Lily noticed the woman's trembling fingers clutch at a locket hidden beneath her blouse, an exact match to the one Rosa now wore. That night, Lily crept to the pool with a flashlight. The beam caught something glinting at the bottom, a small silver hairpin crusted with decades of algae. As she reached for it, the water suddenly grew icy, and a child's voice whispered directly in her ear, "Help us." When she surfaced, gasping, the flashlight illuminated fresh scratches on the pool tiles, 3 jagged lines like a child's desperate attempt to climb out. The man in the suit didn't acknowledge Lily as she stepped aside, his polished shoes clicking sharply against the linoleum. "Mr. Blackwood," he said, handing Richard a thick envelope. "The amended documents, signatures required by end of day." Lily caught the words "psychological evaluation" and "inheritance clauses" before Richard swiftly tucked the papers away. His eyes flicked to her cold assessing. "Wait downstairs," he ordered. But Lily didn't move. Through the half-open door, she saw Ethan's face fall as the men entered. "Dad, where's Dr. Chen?" Richard's lawyer answered instead. "We need to discuss your future, young man." He placed a briefcase on the bedside table, the metallic snap of its opening making Ethan flinch. Inside lay a stack of forms and a small velvet box. Lily's breath hitched. The box was identical to the one in Clara's photo, the one she'd seen in the pool's reflection. Back at the mansion, Lily found Rosa scrubbing the same spot on the kitchen counter for the 3rd time. "They're hiding something," Lily whispered, describing the lawyer's visit. Rosa's sponge stilled. "The guest house attic," she murmured. "I found boxes up there last year, medical records, newspaper clippings about Clara's death." That night, Lily crept to the attic with a flashlight. Dust swirled in the beam as she pried open a moldering box. Beneath yellowed newspapers screaming, "Tragedy at Blackwood Estate." She uncovered a child's diary, its pages warped with water damage. The last entry, dated the day Clara died, was barely legible. "Mommy says I have to be brave for the new doctor, but the water treatment hurts. Daddy promised it would make me walk again, but all it does is make me sleepy. Today, I saw the girl in the mirror again. She says I don't have to be afraid anymore." A floorboard creaked behind her. Lily whirled to find Vivian in the doorway, her silk robe glimmering like a ghost's shroud. "That," she said softly, "doesn't belong to you." Before Lily could react, Vivian snatched the diary, but as she turned to leave, the attic door slammed shut on its own, trapping them both in the suffocating dark. Somewhere in the shadows, a child's voice giggled. Downstairs, Ethan sat bolt upright in bed, his terrified scream shattering the silence. "Clara says they lied. The treatment wasn't supposed to drown her." At that moment, every faucet in the mansion burst open simultaneously, water gushing like a flood. And in the foyer below, the grandfather clock, silent for 20 years, began to chime. Vivian leaned in so close Lily could smell the bitter almond scent of her perfume. "Ethan's wheelchair didn't malfunction," she whispered. "It was disabled." Before Lily could process the words, Vivian pressed a crumpled napkin into her hand and strode away. Unfolding the napkin under the table, Lily found a hastily scribbled address, 17 Willow Lane, and a single word, Clara. The rain had turned to sleet by the time Lily's Uber dropped her at a derelict brownstone in South Boston. The door swung open before she could knock, revealing a gaunt woman in a nurse's uniform. "You're the Rodriguez girl," she said, her voice raspy. Vivian called. "I'm Margaret, Clara's private nurse." The apartment smelled of mothballs and antiseptic. Yellowed newspaper clippings covered the walls, all documenting Clara's tragic accident. Margaret handed Lily a file. "The Blackwoods paid me to keep quiet. Said the experimental hydrotherapy was safe." Lily's hands trembled as she opened the file. Inside were photos of a terrified Clara strapped to a treatment table, her tiny body submerged in a tank. The last photo showed Richard adjusting the controls, his face eerily calm as bubbles rose from Clara's mouth. Margaret's bony finger tapped the date stamp. "They turned up the oxygen levels too high, induced a seizure. By the time we pulled her out..." She trailed off, lighting a cigarette with shaky hands. "Funny thing, Ethan's accident happened on the same equipment, same room. Only this time someone wanted him found." Lily's phone buzzed a text from Rosa. "Richard's men are here searching your room. They took your journal." At that moment, headlights swept across the curtains. Margaret peered outside, then shoved Lily toward the fire escape. "Blackwood security. Go." Lily barely made it to the alley before the front door splintered. As she ran, her phone lit up with Vivian's final message. "They know you know. Don't trust anyone, not even me." Back at the hospital, Lily slipped past security to Ethan's room. The boy was awake, clutching a small tape recorder. "Lily," he hissed. "Dad's lawyer left this. It's her voice." He pressed play. A child's giggle filled the room, followed by a whisper. "Ethan, don't let them put you in the water again. It's how they made me disappear." The door handle rattled. Lily barely had time to hide the recorder before Richard entered, his eyes locking onto hers with terrifying clarity. "Miss Rodriguez," he said softly, "we need to talk about your future." Behind him, 2 security men blocked the exit. Somewhere in the walls, pipes began to groan, a sound like distant mocking laughter. Lily's blood ran cold as the news footage cut to a press conference. Marcus Stone stood at a podium, his tailored suit and polished demeanor belying the venom in his words. As the Blackwood family's former financial advisor, he declared, "I can no longer remain silent about Richard's reckless disregard for his son's safety." Ethan muted the TV, his small face pale. "That man came to see me yesterday," he whispered. "He asked weird questions about my chair, said Daddy would be in big trouble soon." Before Lily could respond, Vivian burst into the room, her usually perfect hair disheveled. "They're moving up the hearing," she gasped. "Richard's filing for emergency custody transfer to Marcus." Lily's phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. "Check your email. Sent you the hydrotherapy schematics. Same mechanism as Ethan's chair." The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. Richard hadn't been trying to kill Ethan, he'd been recreating Clara's accident to frame Vivian. And Marcus Stone was his willing accomplice. That night, as Lily crept through the Blackwood Mansion's archives, searching for proof, she found something worse, a life insurance policy taken out on Ethan the week before his accident. The beneficiary, A Shell Corporation, traced to Marcus Stone. The grandfather clock struck midnight when she heard the faint whir of Ethan's new wheelchair moving on its own down the darkened hallway. She followed the sound to the pool house where Richard stood over the water holding a small remote control. "You figured it out, didn't you?" he said without turning around. "Clara's trust fund couldn't be touched unless her death was accidental. Ethan's the same." His thumb hovered over a red button. "Pity you'll drown too." A child's laughter echoed through the room as all the doors slammed shut simultaneously. The pool lights flickered on, revealing Ethan wide awake and holding Lily's phone, its recording light glowing. "Say hello to the district attorney, Dad," he said calmly. Outside, sirens wailed. The last thing Lily saw before the police stormed in was Richard's face, not angry, but eerily relieved, as if he'd wanted to get caught all along. Epilogue. 3 months later, Lily sat with Ethan in his new foster home's garden reading the final Harry Potter book. The Blackwood fortune had been frozen pending investigation. Vivian had entered rehab, and Marcus Stone had vanished with what remained of the offshore accounts. Ethan handed Lily a folded drawing, a girl with a red ribbon standing beside a wheelchair-bound boy under the words, "Real heroes don't wear capes." "Clara visited me last night," he said matter-of-factly. "She says we're safe now." The wind rustled the trees, carrying with it the faint scent of chlorine and something sweeter like childhood laughter. Lily's pen hovered over the contract when the car hit a pothole, the jolt making her accidentally sign Clara Blackwood instead of her own name. A shiver ran down her spine as she stared at the looping, childlike handwriting that wasn't hers. The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror again. "Everything all right back there?" "Fine." Lily lied hastily, folding the contract. But as they passed Willow Lane, she suddenly grabbed the door handle. "Stop here, I need air." The moment the car pulled over, Lily bolted down the rain-slicked street toward Margaret's brownstone. The nurse answered on the first knock, her face grim. "I was hoping you'd come," she said, yanking Lily inside. "Stone just called me. He knows about the hydrotherapy files." Margaret thrust a yellowed medical chart into Lily's hands, Ethan's initial injury report from 2 years prior. "The car accident that paralyzed him. The brakes failed because someone cut the hydraulic line. Richard collected $5 million in insurance right before transferring it all to an offshore account Marcus controlled." Lily's phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Dad's acting weird. Says we're going on a trip tomorrow. Did you sign the papers?" At 1:58 p.m. the next day, Lily stood outside Westbridge Coffee, watching through the window as Marcus Stone adjusted his tie, the same nervous tick Richard had. That's when she noticed it, the faint scar above his eyebrow, identical to Richard's. The realization hit like lightning. Twins. She burst into the cafe just as Stone was slipping something into his coffee. "You're not after the money," Lily accused. "You want revenge because Richard cut you out of the family." Stone's smile turned feral. "Smart girl, but too late." He nodded toward the TV above the counter where breaking news flashed: Blackwood heir missing housekeeper's daughter last seen with child. Lily's phone rang. It was Ethan whispering, "I'm in Dad's study closet. He's packing a suitcase full of your clothes. Lily, I think he's trying to make it look like you kidnapped me." Across the table, Stone stood dropping a hotel key card with a room number scrawled in Richard's handwriting. "Tick-tock, Miss Rodriguez. The police will be at your apartment in 20 minutes. As Lily ran rain stinging her face, she dialed the only person she could trust, Vivian. "Meet me at the boathouse," the woman hissed, "and bring the real contract you signed last night." When Lily arrived, Vivian was waiting with a gasoline can and a lighter. "Burn it," she ordered. "That signature binds you to their crimes." The flames had just begun to lick at the paper when the first police cruiser rounded the bend, its siren cutting through the storm. In the chaos, no one noticed Ethan's tiny figure watching from the trees or the red ribbon tied around his wrist, fluttering like a warning flag in the wind. Epilogue. The Boston Globe headline read, "Blackwood Twin Conspiracy Unravels." But Lily only cared about the smaller photo beneath it. Ethan grinning in his new wheelchair at the Rodriguez apartment, helping Rosa roll dough for pastelitos, while Lily's college acceptance letter lay open on the counter. That night, as she tucked Ethan into bed, he whispered, "Clara says you're our real guardian angel." Outside the window, the wind chimes played a familiar tune, the same lullaby Clara had hummed in the hydrotherapy tapes. Some bonds, Lily realized, couldn't be drowned. Some ghosts didn't need avenging, just remembering. And some families weren't born, but forged in the fires of shared secrets and sacrifice. Lily knelt beside Ethan's wheelchair, ignoring the photographer's flash. "Hey, Ethanito," she whispered in Spanish, using their secret nickname. "You look like a race car driver in this thing." Ethan grinned, but his grip on her wrist was urgent. "Check the left wheel," he murmured in her ear. "Dad won't let anyone touch it." As Vivian shooed the photographer away, Lily pretended to adjust Ethan's blanket, her fingers brushing the wheelchair's custom hubcap. It came loose too easily, revealing a small black box with blinking red lights. The sight turned Lily's blood to ice. A data recorder. Richard's voice boomed across the marble foyer. "Miss Rodriguez, a word in my office." Inside the study, Richard poured 2 glasses of whiskey despite the early hour. "You're a smart girl," he said, pushing one toward Lily. "Which is why I know you'll understand that device ensures Ethan's safety. If he has another accident, we'll have proof it wasn't negligence." Lily's fingers trembled around the glass. "Or proof you made it look like an accident." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sign the contract, Lily. Take the money. Your mother keeps her job. Everyone wins." Downstairs, a crash echoed through the house. They found Ethan in the kitchen, his wheelchair tipped over, flour everywhere, and Rosa clutching the disassembled data recorder. "Malfunction," she announced loudly, meeting Richard's glare without flinching. "Good thing we caught it before Ethan got hurt." That night, Lily lay awake staring at the contract's signature line. A text buzzed an unknown number, sending a photo Richard and Marcus Stone shaking hands at a corporate event dated the day before Ethan's original accident. The caption read, "Ask him about the twin clause in their grandfather's will." At 3 a.m., Lily crept to Ethan's room with a screwdriver. As she disabled the replacement data recorder, the boy whispered, "Clara says to look behind the family portrait." The painting swung away to reveal a wall safe inside a VHS tape labeled Hydrotherapy Session 4-5003. When Lily pressed play, the footage showed Richard adjusting equipment, while a young Marcus Stone held Clara underwater, his face eerily calm as bubbles rose. The camera panned to reveal Vivian watching from the doorway, her hands covering her mouth not in horror, but to smother her laughter. Dawn was breaking when Lily slipped the tape into a FedEx box addressed to the district attorney. As the truck pulled away, her phone rang. It was Vivian, her voice frantic. "Whatever you think you know, Lily, Richard will kill you for it. Take Ethan and run." Somewhere in the house, a smoke alarm began to wail. Lily's fingers hovered over the flash drive as Stone leaned in his cologne, thick with the scent of money and deceit. "The accident that paralyzed Ethan," he murmured. "Richard was driving that car, and the brakes didn't fail, they were removed." The coffee shop door chimed. Lily glanced up to see the Blackwoods chauffeur scanning the room, his hand pressed to an earpiece. Stone's smile turned razor sharp. "Ah, right on schedule." He tapped the flash drive. "This contains security footage from Richard's garage the night before the crash. Watch it and ask yourself, why would a father disable his own son's wheelchair twice?" Lily's phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. "They know you're gone. Richard is furious. Ethan's crying." As the chauffeur spotted them, Stone stood abruptly, dropping a hotel keycard next to the flash drive. "Room 214 at the Harborview. Everything you need is there, but you'll have to choose the truth or the paycheck Richard's dangling in front of you." The chauffeur was 5 steps away when Lily palmed both items and bolted out the back exit. In the alley, she jammed the flash drive into her phone, only to gasp as video footage showed Richard kneeling beside Ethan's old wheelchair, methodically cutting hydraulic lines while humming Rockabye Baby. Her hands shook as she dialed Vivian. "Meet me at the boathouse in 10 minutes. Bring Ethan." But when Lily arrived, it wasn't Vivian waiting. It was Richard holding Ethan's limp form in the water up to his waist. "I wondered when you'd figure it out," he said calmly. "The trust fund stipulates double payout if 2 children die by accidental drowning." Ethan's eyes fluttered open, terrified but alert. "Lily," he croaked. "Clara says to push the red button." Lily's gaze snapped to the wheelchair parked nearby its control panel, blinking with a single crimson light. She lunged just as Richard dove for it. The resulting explosion of sparks sent Richard reeling back, but not before Lily caught Ethan dragging him to safety as the wheelchair's recording module began blaring Clara's voice. "Daddy put me in the water and never let me out." Sirens wailed in the distance. Richard scrambled for the pier's edge, but Ethan, with sudden miraculous strength, grabbed his father's ankle. "No more running," the boy whispered. Epilogue. The Boston Globe's exposé won a Pulitzer, but Lily kept the real trophy, Ethan's crayon drawing of their new family taped to her dorm room wall. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, he'd written, "Sometimes angels don't have wings. They have signed contracts and screwdrivers." And on quiet nights, if the wind carried the faint scent of chlorine from the direction of the now demolished Blackwood pool, neither of them mentioned it. Some ghosts, after all, make the best guardians. Lily found Ethan in the sunroom, his wheelchair angled toward the French doors, eyes fixed on the empty pool. Vivian stood stiffly by the piano, her fingers tracing the same 3 notes over and over. "Ethan," Lily whispered, kneeling beside him. "We need to, go." He finished pressing something cold into her palm, the Swiss Army knife she'd given him for adventures. His whisper was barely audible. "Dad's sending me away tonight. To Switzerland." Vivian's piano chord crashed dissonantly. "The car arrives at 6, she said without turning. Harrison arranged everything. Lily's fingers closed around the flash drive in her pocket. "You knew," she accused. "About the car accident, about Clara." Vivian's reflection in the window glass showed tears cutting through her perfect makeup. "I knew the money came first. Always." She slid an envelope across the piano bench, boarding passes for Geneva in Ethan's name. The grandfather clock struck 5 as Lily sprinted to Richard's study. Through the cracked door she heard Wells' voice. "The jet's ready. Once Ethan's at the clinic, we control the narrative completely." Richard's reply made her blood freeze. "Make sure they understand no more failed treatments this time." Lily backed away just as her phone buzzed, Stone's number flashing with a new text. "Check the safe behind Monet's water lilies replica. Hurry." The painting swung away to reveal not money or documents, but a child-sized wrist brace, the kind used in hydrotherapy. Engraved on the leather was CAB 2003 and a single word, "Help." A floorboard creaked behind her. Harrison Wells stood in the doorway, his polished smile never reaching his eyes. "Looking for something, Miss Rodriguez." Ethan's voice suddenly rang through the intercom. "Lily, the pool house, now!" She ducked past Wells, sprinting across the lawn, as screams erupted from the glass-walled structure. Through the panes, she saw Richard dragging a thrashing Ethan toward the water, just as the flash drive footage had shown him doing with Clara. Lily burst through the doors as Richard turned, his face twisting in recognition. "You don't understand," he hissed. "The Swiss doctors can fix him, but only if the world sees how much he suffers first." Ethan's hand found Lily's as the distant wail of police sirens cut through the manicured silence. "Clara called them," he whispered. "She remembers the number from last time." The pool lights flickered on, illuminating not water but thousands of shredded documents floating like confetti. Bank records, insurance policies, and one perfectly preserved photograph of 2 little girls, Clara in her red ribbon, and another child Lily didn't recognize, both strapped to hydrotherapy tables. As the first police cruiser crashed through the gates, Richard's scream wasn't of anger, but relief. Finally. Epilogue. The Boston Herald headline read, "Blackwood heir testifies against father in $300 fraud case." But the real story was in the small suburban kitchen where Lily helped Ethan decorate his first ever birthday cake. His legs bouncing nervously in brand new braces as he painstakingly piped "family" in wobbly letters across the frosting. That night, as fireflies danced outside, Ethan pointed to the darkening sky. "Clara says thank you." Lily didn't ask how he knew. Some truths, like the faint scent of chlorine that still lingered in his hair, needed no explanation. Lily's breath caught as Ethan rolled forward, his small hands gripping the wheelchair controls with surprising determination. "I saw the video too, Dad," he said, his voice steady. "The one where you cut the brake lines on Uncle Marcus's car." Richard's glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the hardwood. That's not what you saw, son. That was July the 12th. Ethan interrupted. 2 days before my accident. He tapped his tablet, and the study's wall-mounted TV flickered to life, showing Richard in the garage humming as he snipped hydraulic lines. Wells lunged for the tablet, but Ethan was faster. With a swipe, the video changed security footage from the pool house the previous week. Richard stood over the water controls, adjusting settings, while Ethan's wheelchair rolled unmanned toward the deep end. "You promised Clara you'd stop," Ethan whispered. "After the water treatment, after she—" Richard's face crumpled. "You don't understand. The trust fund was never about money." Ethan's shout startled even Lily. It was always about control. He swiped again, pulling up bank records, dozens of payments to a Swiss clinic specializing in experimental pediatric paralysis treatments. The room spun as Lily connected the dots. Richard hadn't been trying to kill Ethan. He'd been curating his disabilities, manufacturing tragedies to maintain sympathy and access to Clara's trust. Wells made a break for the door, but it slammed shut on its own, the lock clicking with finality. Ethan's eyes never left his father's. "Clara says it's time to tell the truth." Outside, tires screeched as multiple cars skidded to a halt in the driveway. Through the window, Lily saw Marcus Stone stepping out with federal agents and a woman in a wheelchair who looked eerily like an older version of Clara. Richard staggered back as the woman pointed at him through the glass. "Hello, brother," she mouthed. Epilogue. The Boston Globe expose won every journalism award that year, but Lily kept the real prize, the voicemail from Ethan's new foster parents. "He asked if you'll come to Parents' Weekend at his new school. Says there's an empty bed in his dorm room for his sister." That Christmas, as they decorated their tiny apartment tree with Clara's old ornaments, Lily finally asked the question that had haunted her. "Did you really see her, Clara, I mean?" Ethan, now walking with just a cane, hung the final ornament, a tiny silver wheelchair. "Every night," he said simply. "She says you're the big sister she always wanted." And when the tree lights caught the glass just right, casting prismatic reflections across the walls, neither mentioned how the shadows seemed to form the shape of a little girl watching over them with a smile. Lily grabbed Ethan's wheelchair handles just as the conservatory doors burst open. But it wasn't the FBI. Vivian stood there, her Chanel suit disheveled, clutching a leather-bound journal. "Take him!" she gasped, thrusting the book at Lily. "It's Clara's diary, proof of everything." Ethan's small hands grabbed Lily's sleeve. "The fountain!" he shouted over the alarms. "Clara says look behind it." As agents swarmed the mansion, Lily pried loose a decorative stone near the water feature, revealing a rusted safe deposit box key taped underneath. Vivian's breath hitched. "That's from the First National Vault. Richard moved everything there after Clara." A gunshot rang out upstairs. Ethan flinched as shouting erupted from Richard's study. "We have to go now," Vivian insisted, shoving them toward the service elevator. "There's a tunnel to the boathouse." The elevator shuddered downward just as the power cut out. In the eerie glow of emergency lights, Lily opened Clara's diary to a dog-eared page, a child's crayon drawing of a man holding a girl underwater, captioned in shaky letters, "Daddy's special treatment makes me sleepy." The boathouse reeked of gasoline and damp wood. Vivian wrenched open a hidden panel in the floor. "This leads to the old storm drains. Follow them west, they empty out near the train station." She pressed car keys into Lily's hand. "My Audi's parked behind the florist on Magnolia. Take Ethan and don't stop until you reach Canada." Lily hesitated. "What about you?" Vivian's smile was grim as she pulled a second key from her pocket, identical to the one from the fountain. "Someone has to give the feds what they really came for." As they crawled through the tunnel, Ethan's wheelchair scraping against concrete, distant shouts echoed behind them. The boy suddenly gasped, his legs kicking involuntarily for the first time in 2 years. "Lily!" he cried. "Clara says run faster." Above them, the mansion exploded in a fireball that turned night into day. Lily didn't look back. Epilogue. The Toronto skyline glittered as Lily read the latest headline aloud. Blackwood CFO turns state's evidence, Vivian Blackwood exposes decades of fraud. Beside her in the wheelchair, Ethan carefully printed a postcard to his mother at the Federal Detention Center. His new physical therapist marveled at his progress. "It's like the nerves just woke up," she'd say, baffled by how quickly he was regaining movement. Only Ethan understood. Every night before bed, he'd set out 2 glasses of chocolate milk, one for himself, one for Clara. And every morning, the second glass would be empty with faint, damp footprints leading back to the window. As the first snow fell, Lily hung a silver ornament on their tiny tree. A little girl with a red ribbon watching over a boy in a wheelchair. Some bonds, it seemed, even death couldn't break. And in the quiet moments, if the scent of chlorine sometimes lingered in the air, neither of them mentioned it. After all, every family has its secrets and its guardian angels. Lily stepped between Ethan and the agent, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "His name is Ethan Blackwood. He's 6 years old, has partial T12 paraplegia from a car accident, and right now he's terrified." She squeezed Ethan's hand. "And he's not going anywhere with strangers." Agent Ramirez held up his palms. "I get it, but protocol says—" A crash from upstairs cut him off. Through the ceiling, they heard Vivian screaming, "You'll never prove it, the records are gone." Ethan suddenly sat bolt upright in his wheelchair. "Lily," he whispered urgently. "Clara says to check Dad's golf bag." Ramirez frowned. "Who's Clara?" Ignoring him, Lily wheeled Ethan toward the garage. The custom Callaway bag leaned against Richard's Porsche, its pockets bulging. Inside, they found not golf tees, but a waterproof case containing a thumb drive and a stack of documents stamped Blackwood Hydrotherapy Clinic, Patient 042. The first page made Lily's stomach drop. Subject Clara Blackwood. Treatment logs show intentional oxygen deprivation during sessions to induce temporary paralysis for insurance documentation. Ethan's small finger traced a photo paperclip to the file, Richard standing beside 2 hydrotherapy tanks, each containing a child. The second girl wasn't Clara. "That's why Dad sent me to swim lessons," Ethan realized aloud. "To see if I'd float like she did." Ramirez radioed for backup, his voice tight with fury. But Lily was already flipping through more pages, bank transfers, offshore accounts, and a life insurance policy for Ethan with a $20 million payout clause for accidental drowning. The garage door burst open. Vivian stood there, her designer blouse, torn mascara streaking down her face. "Give me those!" she shrieked, lunging for the files. Ramirez intercepted her, but not before she grabbed Ethan's arm. "You're mine!" she hissed. "You and that trust fund are all I have left." Ethan recoiled, and in that moment his legs moved, kicking out instinctively for the first time in years. Vivian stumbled back in shock just as more agents swarmed in. Epilogue. The Boston Globe headline read, "Blackwood Dynasty Crumbles, CEO Arrested in $500 million Insurance Fraud Scheme." But the real story was playing out in a small Toronto apartment. Ethan took his first unaided steps toward Lily on Christmas morning, his braces discarded beside the tree. Outside, snow fell gently over the city, and if some of the flakes seemed to form the shape of a little girl dancing in the wind, neither of them mentioned it. The postcard from Agent Ramirez arrived in January. Vivian's plea deal got her 5 years. Richard's going away for life. P.S. Tell Ethan his testimony saved 17 other kids at that Swiss clinic. That night, Ethan set 3 cups of hot chocolate by the window instead of 2. When Lily raised an eyebrow, he simply said, "Agent Ramirez likes marshmallows." And in the morning, all 3 cups were empty. Lily tucked the blanket around Ethan as he clutched the worn teddy bear. "It's not your mansion," she admitted, smoothing his hair. Ethan shook his head, eyes wide in the lamplight. "It's better. It smells like real home." Down the hall, Rosa's phone rang. Lily tensed until she heard her mother's relieved sigh. "Good news," Rosa whispered, returning. "The judge granted temporary custody. Ethan stays with us while they sort things out." Ethan sat up so fast his legs twitched, a movement that hadn't happened since before his accident. "Did you see that?" Lily gasped. Rosa crossed herself. "Milagro. That night, as Lily lay awake listening to Ethan's steady breathing, her phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. "Check the teddy bear." Heart pounding, she crept to the living room. Ethan slept peacefully, the bear tucked under his arm. Its left ear had a peculiar bulge. Inside the stitching, Lily found a micro SD card wrapped in a slip of paper with coordinates and one word: Clara. The next morning, while Ethan helped Rosa make pancakes, Lily slipped the card into her laptop. It contained a single video file security footage from the Blackwood pool house dated the day of Ethan's accident. The footage showed Richard disabling the wheelchair's safety lock, then Vivian watching from the shadows as it rolled toward the water. But what made Lily's blood run cold was the timestamp exactly 20 years to the day after Clara's death. At breakfast, Ethan carefully wrote his name in syrup on his pancake. "Clara says we're going on a trip," he announced matter-of-factly. Rosa dropped her spatula. "Dios mío." Lily showed them the coordinates leading to a lakeside cabin in Vermont. That afternoon, with FBI approval, they piled into Rosa's old station wagon. As they crossed state lines, Ethan suddenly unbuckled his seatbelt, standing on wobbly legs to point at a passing road sign. "Look, Clara says that's where we turn." The sign read, "Willow Lane, 1 mile." Epilogue. The cabin's rusted safe contained what prosecutors called the smoking gun. Vivian's handwritten logs of Richard's schemes and a single red hair ribbon tied around a stack of hospital bills. Ethan kept the ribbon in his pocket during his testimony at Richard's trial. By then, he was walking with only a slight limp, his doctors baffled by the spontaneous neurological recovery. On the courthouse steps, a reporter asked how he'd known where to look. Ethan simply smiled. "My sister draws really good maps." And when they returned to their tiny apartment that night, now legally, their home 3 cups of hot chocolate sat steaming by the window, though only 2 people lived there. Some bonds, it seemed, even the justice system couldn't explain. And some sisters kept their promises no matter what. Vivian's teacup froze halfway to her lips. "Here." Her gaze swept the cramped apartment again, the threadbare sofa bed, the peeling wallpaper, the single bathroom down the hall. Rosa lifted her chin. "The floor's clean. We have extra blankets." A strange expression crossed Vivian's face. For the first time, Lily noticed how her manicure had grown out, how her diamond tennis bracelet had been replaced by a simple rubber band around her wrist. Vivian's voice broke. She cleared her throat. "I'd be grateful." That night, as Lily lay awake listening to the unfamiliar sounds of Vivian's quiet sobs from the living room, Ethan's whisper startled her. "Clara says Mom's telling the truth. She didn't know about the bad things." Lily turned to find him standing in her doorway, standing without his braces. "Ethan, your legs." He wobbled, grabbing the doorframe. "They tingle now, like when your foot wakes up." Down the hall, a floorboard creaked. Vivian stood frozen in shadow, her hands covering her mouth. "Oh my God." Morning light revealed the impossible Ethan walking unaided to the breakfast table. Vivian's tear-stained face as she watched him, and 3 places set though only 2 plates were filled. The FBI arrived at noon. Agent Ramirez took one look at Ethan balancing without support and radioed for a medic. "His doctors are going to lose their minds," he muttered. Vivian stepped forward. "Before you take him, you should know I'm withdrawing my custody claim." Even Ethan looked stunned. "Mom!" Vivian knelt, her designer jeans scraping the linoleum. "You're healing here," she whispered, "in ways no Blackwood fortune could ever provide." She pressed a kiss to his forehead. "I'll visit every weekend, if that's okay with the Rodriguezes." Rosa nodded, tears in her eyes. As the social worker led Ethan to the car, he turned back once, not to Vivian, but to the empty space beside Lily. "Bye, Clara," he whispered. Epilogue. The Boston Herald ran 2 stories side by side a year later. Blackwood CFO sentenced to 5 years, and Miracle Boy walks again. But the real headline was in the photo beneath them: Vivian serving meals at Rosa's homeless shelter, Ethan running laps at his new public school, and Lily accepting her college scholarship, all framed by the Rodriguez apartment's familiar peeling wallpaper. And if the shelter's security cameras sometimes caught glimpses of a little girl with a red ribbon playing in the empty cafeteria after hours, well, some miracles preferred to work off camera. Vivian reached into her pocket and slid a key across the kitchen table, the same tarnished one from Clara's fountain. The safe deposit box at First National. It contains Richard's real ledgers, not the ones he showed the board. Her fingers trembled. But I can't access it alone. The FBI will be watching me. Lily picked up the key, its weight heavier than it should be. Why trust us? Because you're the only people who've ever put Ethan first, Vivian said simply. Then softer, and because Clara's been trying to tell me something for 20 years. I think she wants me to finally listen. That night, while Ethan slept between them on the pull-out couch, Vivian showed Lily the scars on her wrists, thin faded lines hidden beneath diamond bracelets. The first was the night Richard came home from Clara's funeral without tears, she whispered. The last was when Ethan called me Mom, instead of Vivian, like his father insisted. At dawn, they hatched their plan. Lily would take the key to Agent Ramirez while Vivian created a diversion at the courthouse. But as Lily stepped onto the subway platform, a black SUV screeched to a halt beside her. Harrison Wells leaned out the window, his once polished veneer cracked with desperation. Give me the key, Miss Rodriguez. Richard's willing to make it worth your while. Lily backed toward the edge of the platform. How much is Ethan's life worth to him? Wells' smile turned vicious. Less than you'd think. The train's arrival saved her, but not before she glimpsed Marcus Stone in the passenger seat, his face eerily similar to Richard's. At the FBI field office, Agent Ramirez listened intently as Lily explained everything: the ledgers, the hydrotherapy clinic, the twin brothers who'd orchestrated it all. When she finished, he opened a case file marked Clara, containing autopsy photos that made her stomach lurch. Official cause of death was accidental drowning, Ramirez said grimly. But the coroner's notes mention unexplained needle marks between her toes. The safe deposit box revealed the final horror: Richard's handwritten logs of treatments administered to both Clara and Ethan, dates corresponding exactly with their accidents. Epilogue. The trial made international news not for the financial crimes, but for Vivian's gut-wrenching testimony about the night she found Richard kneeling beside Ethan's crib with a syringe. I threatened to expose him, she told the court, voice shaking. That's when he promised me Ethan would be safe, as long as I played my part. The judge sentenced Richard to life without parole. Marcus Stone got 15 years for his role. On Ethan's 8th birthday, now walking unaided, he blew out candles beside Vivian at Rose's kitchen table. When Lily asked what he wished for, he pointed to the empty chair where no one sat. Clara says she's happy now. She doesn't need to visit anymore. That night, for the first time in 20 years, the scent of chlorine finally faded from the air, leaving only the warm aroma of Rosa's pastelitos and the quiet peace of a family forged not by blood, but by courage. And in the morning, when they found 3 empty hot chocolate cups instead of 4, even Vivian smiled through her tears. Some goodbyes, it seemed, were sweeter than hellos. The screen door slammed as Ethan raced his wheelchair down the ramp, his laughter mixing with the wind chimes Rosa had hung on the porch. Watch this, he called, popping a wheelie with the ease of a kid who'd finally been allowed to play. Lily smiled, but her gaze drifted to the envelope on the counter, the one from Harvard that had arrived that morning. The scholarship offer was everything she'd dreamed of, but a small hand tugged her sleeve. Ethan held out a crayon drawing of a campus with 3 stick figures, one in a wheelchair, one with Rosa's curly hair, and one with Vivian's sleek ponytail. Clara says you should go, he whispered. We'll visit every weekend. Vivian appeared in the doorway, her once perfect nails now chipped from gardening. He's right, she said, wiping soil-stained hands on her jeans. We'll be fine. The transformation still startled Lily, this version of Vivian who baked cookies and volunteered at Ethan's school, her designer wardrobe replaced by thrift store flannels. That night, as Lily packed her dorm supplies, she found the velvet pouch at the bottom of her suitcase, the one from Vivian's safety deposit box. Inside lay Clara's red ribbon and a faded Polaroid of 2 little girls in hospital gowns, Clara and another child with haunted eyes. The door creaked open. Vivian stood there holding 2 mugs of cocoa. I wondered where that photo went, she said softly, sitting beside Lily. Who is she? Lily traced the unknown girl's face. Vivian's breath hitched. Richard's first investment, an orphan from Belarus. When the treatments didn't work on her, She couldn't finish. The pieces clicked together: the second hydrotherapy tank, the foreign medical records in the safe deposit box. Lily's voice trembled. How many were there? Vivian's tears fell onto the photo. Enough that Richard's sentence should have been lifetimes 20. Outside, Ethan's laughter floated through the window as Rosa taught him to grill carne asada. The normalcy of it felt like a miracle. Epilogue. The New York Times would later call it the Blackwood Redemption, how a disgraced socialite turned whistleblower helped take down a human trafficking ring disguised as a medical charity. But Lily's favorite headline was the one in Ethan's third-grade newsletter: Local boy wins science fair with solar-powered wheelchair design. On move-in day at Harvard, as Lily hugged her makeshift family goodbye, she spotted a familiar red ribbon tied around her dorm room doorknob. And when the first snow fell that winter, 3 sets of footprints always appeared overnight in the quad, even though only 2 visitors ever signed in at the front desk. Some bonds, it seemed, could survive even the truth. And some sisters, whether by blood or by choice, never really said goodbye. Lily sat on the pool deck watching Ethan slice through the water with smooth strokes, his body moving with a grace that defied his wheelchair. The scars on his back, once hidden under designer clothing, now caught the sunlight like medals of survival. Vivian appeared beside her, holding out a dripping Polaroid camera. He wanted to document his first lap without floaties, she said, shaking the developing photo. The image that emerged showed Ethan mid-stroke, his triumphant smile, unmistakable, and a faint shimmering distortion in the water beside him that looked suspiciously like a little girl holding his hand. That's going in the scrapbook, Vivian declared, her voice thick with emotion. The same scrapbook that now held Harvard acceptance letters, custody papers, and the torn corner of a $20 million insurance policy, repurposed as a grocery list. As Ethan hauled himself onto the pool edge, his legs, still unsteady but growing stronger every day, kicked reflexively. "Did you see?" he panted. "I did the whole length." Lily wrapped him in a towel, remembering the terrified boy in the mansion's shadowy halls. "You're unstoppable," she whispered into his damp hair. That night, as they gathered around Rosa's cramped kitchen table for Tres Leches cake, Vivian raised her glass of sparkling cider. "Two unexpected families," she toasted. Ethan clinked his cup against the 4th place, setting the one they always left empty. "And guardian angels," he added. Outside, the wind chimes danced wildly, though the air was still. And if the scent of chlorine sometimes mingled with Rosa's cafecito on quiet mornings, no one minded. After all, some miracles leave traces. And some loves, whether forged in water blood or the quiet spaces between heartbeats, never really dry.